Hello and Happy New Year. Welcome back to the Tennent's Men's Premiership and National League highlights. After a month away for some of our teams, we are finally back with a full fixture list across the 4 divisions. We're going to start off our coverage of the Premiership in Edinburgh, as 2 of the bottom half teams met, where Heriot's Blues hosted Jed-Forest. Your commentary from this one comes from Andrew Peartree.
The Borderers burst out of the sheds to execute several dangerous breaks early on, but it was the away team who took the lead when a laser-guided crossfield kick from Gary Munro put home fullback Rory Steele under serious pressure. He was clattered by Mason Cullen, dislodging the ball, and the Jed winger capitalised for the opening score. Heriots then won several penalties, allowing hooker Matthew Toward to hit his man and the Heriots maul to rumble forward. Scrum half Ross Thompson then fed rampaging loose forward Ali Johnston, and he was able to ride the Jed tackles and dot down to score. Great play from returning captain Clark Skeldon, and Gary Young got Jed back down the pitch before the cover defence was able to haul Young down metres short. But after several fearsome collisions, it was prop Paulo Ferreira who went over, collecting yet another try for the season. However, Jed were their own worst enemy, coughing up a needless penalty which allowed Heriots to kick into the away team's 22. Thompson fed his backs, and some smart handling released Edinburgh man Ben Evans, who showed his quality with some dancing feet and nifty hands, which sent Thompson under the posts. Jed came firing back. Blake Roth looked certain to score, but Heriot's defence again scrambled back to shut him down inches from the line, and after a couple of phases, it was try machine Ferreira who burrowed over for his brace to re-establish the Jed advantage shortly before half-time. The visitors struck after the break, with Munro dropping into the pocket and nailing a drop goal from around 30 metres out. Then Heriots rung the changes, with sub Danny Dineen finding his man to grab a try from a well-worked maul with almost his first touch of the game. After a quiet period, the game burst back into life, led by a thumping tackle from Roth which let the ball loose. Aidan Bambrick hacked on before Mason Cullen towed it forward, with the ball eventually bouncing for Bambrick to dive over and score the messiest of tries. Heriots were certainly not out of the game, entering Jed territory through the destructive carrying of Johnston, and after several phases it was that man Robertson who went in under heavy pressure from Cullen to finally get his name on the scoresheet. Wilson was off target this time, leaving Jed with a slender 3-point lead. But Jed stretched away again with a Finlay Scott penalty, as the visitors held on for the win to ease any relegation anxiety.
Well, the result for Jed saw them leapfrog GHA, who themselves were looking to see if they could get a win against high-flying Selkirk, who were looking to pull away from Marr and retain that last playoff spot. It didn't take long for GHA to open the scoring, as for just a minute in, Kyle Dixon finished off this fantastic move from the team to put the first points on the board. And it was a blistering run from the ever-present Luca Bardelli to get his 13th try of the season and GHA's second of the day. With George Baird converting both, they were 14-0 up after just 5 minutes. It took time for Selkirk to get back into the game, but Bruce Riddell was on hand to get their first try of the day. A powerful line-out maul resulted in the hooker going over. And the game was all square moments later when Josh Welsh was found in acres of space over on the wing. There was not much to separate the two sides at the break, and into the second half the points weren't on as flow as the first, with George Baird getting the first points from this penalty. But it would be Selkirk who, unlike the first 5 minutes, were dominant in the second half, as Jack Hamilton managed to find the gap through the GHA defence to go over for their third try of the day. That was to be the last points of the game as Selkirk strengthened their playoff position. Across at Balerno, Curry Chieftains were taking on Glasgow Hawks as they looked to keep pressure on Hawick at the top of the table. Andrew Pucci once again commentates on the match from Maleny Park.
Despite naming a youthful starting 15 and bench, the Hawks bossed the opening exchanges and looked the better side for long stretches, right up to the point that Curry opened the scoring on perhaps only their second visit to Hawks' red zone. Home fullback Charlie Brett set up the score with a chip and chase that Hawks could only scramble into touch. From the ensuing 5-metre line-out, Curry's pick-and-drive assault on the line was rebuffed 3 or 4 times before the slippery Paddy Bowyer found a scrum half-shaped hole right next to the breakdown to score beside the posts. Hawks' big men earned a penalty from the restart, which fullback Andy McLean converted to get his side off the mark. But Curry had the bit between their teeth by now, and the home side set up camp inside the Hawks' 22. Eventually, the relentless pressure told when replacement Jamie Drummond snuck over from inches out to give Curry a 14-3 lead at the break. If the home fans thought the match was won, Hawks had other ideas. Prop Mike Downer silenced the Maleny faithful with a try that Gavin Cruikshanks converted to narrow the gap to 4 points 5 minutes into the second half. That proved as close as Hawks got. Gregor Hunter, on his return from long-term injury, kicked 2 penalties in as many minutes, a sign of nervousness in the home ranks perhaps, to ease Curry's advantage back out to 10 points. And any hopes of an upset went west when Curry's live-wire winger Cody McGovern skipped past 3 red-faced defenders to score in the right-hand corner, and Hunter's perfect touchline conversion extended Curry's lead to 27-10, a gap Hawks were never likely to bridge in the final 20 minutes. They did get one back though when quick-thinking scrum half Eric Davey tapped a penalty and sprinted 20 yards to score without a glove laid on him. The conversion by Harrison made it a 10-point game with just 5 minutes left to play, and that time left was just enough for replacement scrum half Gregor Christie to pop over for Curry's bonus point 4th try with the last play of the game. A slow start before running out eventual winners. It's more of the same for Curry in 2023.
Well, turning our attention away from the capital and to Troon, where reigning champions Marr took on reigning league leaders and unbeaten Hawick. There was not much to separate these two teams in a repeat of one of last year's semi-finals. However, it was Hawick who would get on the score sheet first when Lewis Ferguson managed to find space in the corner to go for the first points. And that was the only score we saw until the 39th minute mark, when Daniel Sudden managed to find the gap through the Marr defence to set up the easiest of conversions for Kirkford as he added to his tally today, and the league leaders were 14-0 up at half-time. After a pointless first half, Marr would be the ones to open the scoring in the second, with Connor Bickerstaff getting the home team's first try. But despite being blinded by the Ayrshire sun, Kirkford managed to add to his tally for the day with this penalty. Marr quickly answered back with this penalty through Callum Ingalls. However, it was to be the champions' last points of the match, as the league leaders continued to power on, with Lewis Ferguson soon afterwards getting his second try of the match. And with just 3 minutes left on the clock, Daniel Sudden got his second try of the game, securing the bonus point for the unbeaten league leaders who continue to power their way to the title. Well, two teams that had very different results the last time they played at the beginning of December met at Rayburn Place, where Edinburgh Accies, who were looking to come back from their 41-0 defeat to Hawick at Mansfield Park, took on Musselburgh, who had their second win of the season at Philip Hall against Selkirk. In a back-and-forth game in the first half, it would be the home side that would get the first points on the board, when Fraser McCaslin went over from this line-out maul. It was backs play for the next try of the match, as Jamie Looms found Max Wallace, who in turn released the incoming fullback Ben Appleson. He then on the next hand managed to find Lewis Wells on the corner to go in for Accies' second try. Musselburgh fought on for the rest of the first half, and it was only 14-0 to the hosts, and into the second half it took a while for Accies to find their footing again. But Captain Rory Campbell was to step up for Accies' third try of the match in the corner. And it was Clem McClure that would find the bonus point try for Accies as they managed to get back to winning ways. But with the last play of the game, Musselburgh were able to salvage something from the game as they managed to get their first try through winger Callum Marshall. However, it was too little too late for the visitors, who couldn't walk away with anything, and Accies were starting off the year with a 5-point victory. Which leaves then the Premiership table now looking like this. Despite being deducted 2 points in December, Heriot's Blues have managed to get back the 6-point lead that they have over Musselburgh. Jed-Forest as well have now gone above GHA thanks to their win and GHA's loss. Selkirk have now again increased the gap between themselves and Marr as they look to secure that last playoff spot. It is one of the most pivotal weekends in the Tennent's Men's Premiership next week. Edinburgh Accies take on Glasgow Hawks. The top two meet at Mansfield Park as Hawick look to increase their unbeaten run against Curry Chieftains. 7th take on 8th place as Jed-Forest play GHA. Musselburgh host Heriot's Blues in a bottom of the table clash at Stonyhill, and it's a battle for the last playoff spot as Selkirk host Marr at Philip Hall. We're turning our attention now to Tennent's Men's National 1 and in the hunt for the title and for promotion. With Kelso leading the way, Ayr managed to get their games going in the middle of December and are now joint level with the league leaders on 53 points. The challenge, however, was not going to get any easier as they took on 3rd place Melrose at the Greenyards, who were looking to close the gap between themselves and the West Coast team. In what was to be a tight battle between second and third in Tennent's men's National 1, it would be the home team that would get on the score sheet first, when James Brown managed to power his way over the line and touch down despite some brilliant air defence. This would not stop Ayr, however, and Stuart Collier went over for their first points to bring the scores all level at 7-all. But a wayward pass would allow Luke Townsend to intercept and go in unchallenged for the host's second try of the match. But a moment of brilliance from the visitors would get them back into the game, with Ross McCockendale finding Kieran Wood with a crossfield kick. Jamie Bova added this conversion to make it 14-all. With nothing to separate them, Melrose opted for the posts, and 2 penalties from David Covine either side of the break gave Melrose a 20-14 lead. Jamie Bova responded to this with a penalty of his own right in front of the posts. Melrose took the game to Ayr, and with some slick passing between the players, it was Elliot Ruffin who would go over for their next try. The hosts were looking to seal the game, and David Covine made it a hat-trick of penalties as the side were 31-17 up. But if there's one thing you don't do, it's count Ayr out. Some slick passing and pace from the backs allowed them to go out on the wing, with the ball eventually ending up in Robbie McLaren's hands as it was 30-24. And impressively, they took the lead when Pete McCallum took the ball from the back of a line-out maul to go over by himself, with Jamie Bova adding the conversion to put them now 31-30 ahead of the hosts. With that score, there was nothing else to separate the two sides. Ayr walked away with an impressive comeback victory to keep the pace on Kelso at top of the table. In the other games in Tennent's men's National 1, Gala started off the year with a 5-point victory over Dundee, who themselves are looking to keep away from the relegation zone. League leaders Kelso continued their winning form from last year into the start of this year as they won 29-19 at Poynter Park against Biggar. Second bottom Aberdeen Grammar could not get any points despite a spirited performance against Stirling County at Bridgehall. Highland, however, thumped GHK with a 52-5 win as they look to climb their way up the table, GHK themselves looking at relegation threat. And in a capital derby, it was Watsonians who walked away with a fantastic 33-24 victory over Stuart's Melville, who are now 12 matches without a win. which leaves National 1 now looking like this. Watsonians climb up to 8th in the table while Dundee drop to 9th. GHK are now only 3 points behind them. And at the top of the table, Ayers' win now means that they are 9 points ahead of Melrose and still level with league leaders Kelso, albeit they have a game in hand. They will see if they can continue that form next week against Watsonians while Kelso hosts Stewart's Melville. There is another big game at Rubislaw as Aberdeen Grammar look to get back to winning ways against Melrose. Biggar take on Highland, Dundee Rugby hosts Stirling County, and GHK hosts Gala. Let's take a look now at Tennent's Men's National 2. It was not a good week for the teams in the bottom 3, with Boroughmuir losing to Berwick 31-5, Hamilton Bulls losing to Glasgow Accies 34-8, and Cartha Queen's Park, despite a spirited performance, losing 40-20 to Kirkcaldy. As well, Preston Lodge are now sitting at the bottom half of the table after their 14-5 loss to Preston Lodge. They now slump to 9th, with the threat of relegation looming. Dumfries Saints move up into 7th place thanks to their win, and Glasgow Accies remain at the top of the table, with Newton Stewart closely following behind them. Glasgow Accies will look to keep their title charge going as they are away to Boroughmuir. Elsewhere, Cartha Queen's Park will look to get back to winning ways against an informed Dumfries Saints, while Falkirk take on Berwick, Hamilton Bulls take on Kirkcaldy, Lastway take on Newton Stewart, and Preston Lodge will look to begin their climb up back to the table as they take on Peebles. Looking now at Tennent's Men's National 3, and at the top half of the table, it was a big win for Heriot Jordan against their close rivals west of Scotland, coming away with a 33-29 win. Orkney also beat Murrayfield Wanderers 35-24 in a classic game on the island. It was a close battle as well between Allen Glens and league leaders Gordonians, as the Gordonians came away with a 26-19 win to keep their unbeaten streak at the top of the table. Thanks to Perthshire's win over Greenock Wanderers, the gap between those two teams has now increased to 13 points as Perthshire look to climb up the table, with Royal High now sitting 14 points behind 11th place. It's a trip to the capital this weekend for West of Scotland as they take on Murrayfield Wanderers, while elsewhere Hillhead Jordan Hill take on Howard Fife in a big game at the top of the table. Gordonians take on Whitecraigs while Perthshire take on Allen Glens. Royal High are at home to Greenock Wanderers and Strathmore host Orkney.
And so that is it for another weekend of Tennent's Men's Premiership and National League action. What a way to kick off 2023. Some huge results across the 4 divisions. And it's not going to get any quieter next week with 2 massive clashes in the Tennent's Men's Premiership, with the top 2 and the bottom 2 facing each other. Join us next week when we'll have all of the action from the Premiership and from Tennent's Men's National 1, 2 and 3. We'll see you then.